This is David with High Performance Stoicism. I want to talk to you about this. You are fundamentally rational. That's right. That's the Stoic view of human nature. Because of the nature of your soul, you are necessarily and fundamentally rational. Now, I want to talk about what that means and what that doesn't mean. But if it is true that the human psyche is rational in the way that the Stoics say it is, that has a number of important implications for human psychology, for why and how we have emotions, for what makes us act, and so on. And it's important to say from the very outset that the Stoic view of human psychology is much different than what most of us are used to. Many people will resist this idea that human nature is necessarily rational, and they'll give different reasons for such resistance. One of them is the ideas that are at large in our culture, the ideas that we are used to for many, many decades. And the main idea that we're used to for all these years is that humans are fundamentally irrational. That's a view that we received from Freud and a philosopher that had a great influence on him, Friedrich Nietzsche, that humans are necessarily and fundamentally irrational. And there were a number of other philosophers in the 20th century who made the case. And just looking at it from the side, we can see, all right, people are pretty rational. So maybe the irrationalists are right, and maybe the Stoics are wrong. Here's what the Stoics are not saying. The Stoics are not denying we are irrational in the way we operate, in the way we think, in the choices we make. So everybody agrees on that. So then what might it mean that we are rational? And what could the case be for that we are rational, fundamentally? What the Stoics mean by that is we have thoughts, and our minds use our thoughts in different ways to do things that other animals can't do. We can calculate with our thoughts. We can reason with our thoughts and then have one thought be supported by a number of other thoughts. We call that an argument. We can, in one situation, weigh our options and think through using thoughts what would be the best choice to make. So, reasoning is why we are rational. And so that means that we have the capacity to reason. And that doesn't mean that we're always going to reason well. The Stoics were well aware that it takes learning and practice to understand logic and to use logic well and to become proficient in it. That's going to take a good deal of work. So they recognize that. But there's some more fundamental things that you might think, I don't know, I think the irrationalists might be right. And here's the two examples that I'll be using. One thing that seems totally irrational that people engage in is hatred. In other words, we can understand when someone is angry at someone else, but hatred, usually the person that is most harmed by hatred is the hater. It's on your mind. You're thinking about the person that you hate, and then that other person isn't affected by it, so it's not even doing anything to them. And it does seem to be a useless thing to engage in. Let's talk about another thing, which is, and this is quite common, depression, because even a person who is depressed can look at their situation and say, I should feel better, but I'm depressed. I have a good life and I have a job, I have good friends, and sometimes I think my life is terrible and I don't have any friends, nobody cares about me. So isn't that pretty irrational? don't the irrationalists have a point? Let's look into the origin of hatred and the origin of depression. Hatred, what's going on with that? You are angry with someone. And what it means for the Stoics, when you are angry with someone, it means you have a desire to inflict some justice on them, meaning someone cut you off in traffic. Someone did something deceitful at work. Someone didn't break a promise, and we get angry because we believe justice would be that something happens to them. Okay, that's anger. What is hatred? Hatred is when we take that anger and we build on it over time. Note this, we use our own thoughts to give us more reasons to be angry at the person. So we'll say, not only did that person do something deceitful at work, but we're going to say, they are a horrible human being. They are one of the worst people walking on earth. They should be severely punished for what they did. I wish everybody knew what an absolute scum they are. And those are the kinds of thoughts that over time will build up anger into hatred. So hatred takes some time to build, but what builds it is your own thoughts. You build it up. Now, here is the key to see that ultimately there's a sense in which hatred is rational. Hang on with me. Hatred is rational in the following respect. If someone really is total scum, if someone really is one of the worst people in the world, if someone really did something that deserves exposure to everybody and they should be humiliated, then that person seems worthy of hatred because of all the thoughts that you have built up over time. Now, I think you can see where the problem comes in. The problem isn't, given these thoughts that I've been having, that person is deserving of hatred. That part is rational. If those thoughts are ones in your mind, the irrational part is you building up the thoughts that make that person seem worthy of hatred. So, given the information that you fed your mind, it's rational to hate that person. But the problem came in along the way when you started building up this extreme set of beliefs about the person, some of which are not really accurate. Now, let's talk about depression. Everybody becomes dejected when things don't go their way, especially when they've been trying really hard, especially when you are frustrated, you get down. So that's in itself something that's unpleasant. No one likes to feel dejected, but where does depression come in? Once again, it's coming in with thoughts. Once again, it's using our reason to build up something in our mind that has a effect that is very, very tough to deal with. So depression comes about when you start to say things like, I'm no good at anything. It will never work. I always screw up. I'm the worst. So take those thoughts and over time, over hours, and then over days, you keep giving yourself more reasons to be depressed. And then guess what? You are going to be depressed. And here's the thing to note for depression, given all the bad things you've said about yourself, you're the worst. I can't do anything right. It's never going to work for me. It is rational to feel that bad, to feel that depressed, because you've given all these thoughts that point to that, that suggest that, or even imply it. So, in that respect, your depression is rational because if anybody believed all those things, of course they would be depressed. That is rational. The irrational part is what you did over time to build up such nasty thoughts about yourself. That's the irrational part. But the trick is in depression, the problem is you don't know that adding all these negative thoughts is going to make you depressed. In the case of hatred, you don't recognize it's you that's inserting all these beliefs that will make it rational to really hate someone. So the key to stopping these irrational things is to watch over your mind more. The key is to care for and love your mind more and not let such thoughts in very easily. Let's put up a little gate of logic and be careful what thoughts we have, because in one case, it may make us hate someone, and then we might do something foolish, and plus we're going to feel miserable hating someone. It's a horrible thing. And with depression, that can really mess up your life. But the key to note is I'm not going to let these thoughts into my mind, because at some point when they build up, it will it will seem rational to be depressed. So that's it for this video. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a great day and give me a comment.